We did receive our MOSER axles for the 67. Now I don't have to hide that, so you guys know we have that. No big deal now. We can just film right around it. So we do have, like I said, the axles. We do have them installed here, mocked up. And a little bit of an issue, actually. Let me get some light here so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so as you can see, we have everything mocked up. We have the rotor drawn back or tightened up against the axle, so it's flat against. We made sure that's all the way back. We do have our cross pin back in, the bolt in, so the axles are installed at this point. But if you look at this offset, it is still, it fits now, but the rotor is actually too far out now. Before it was too far in, now it's too far out. I spent a lot of time measuring this to make sure it was right. So we're going to go ahead and pull this back apart, undo this again, pull the axle back out and see if it was my miscalculation or if the axle is not quite the right size. But we'll know here shortly. We have our axles back out and we're getting ready to box them back up. And that's because the measurements are actually wrong. It wasn't a measurement I supplied that was wrong. It's actually, I think we're gonna bill it as the tolerance allowed in a axle assembly. So when I supplied measurements, by the way, MOSER is going to back these up, take care of it. I have to ship it back to them, which does suck because it puts the truck project behind even further, but it is what it is at this point. We're going to box these back up, ship them back out to them. They're going to inspect them and decide how they're going to fix them, whether it's going to be a whole new axle to the correct tolerance specs, or if they can modify these to work. But pretty much it's only a 1/16 of an inch off, which doesn't sound like much, and typically it's not much. If this was drum brake, that would matter 0%. You would even notice that, a 1/16 of an inch. But because these calipers and the rotor assembly, it's all fixed. The caliper is not floating, it's fixed. And the rotor is also fixed. It's not a floating rotor or anything like that. So they actually supply, Willwood supplies shims, 10 and 15 thousandths shims to make that spacing perfect, or as close as you possibly can. So at 1/16 of a thousandths, which is 0.062 thousandths, I think I just said that wrong. At 1/16 of an inch, which is 0.062, it's actually too long, so I can't take any more shims away. I have no shims in the assembly at all, and it's still too long. So it's not like I can take any shims out and make it work. So these axles are just too long, which again sucks. Those were too short, the factories. The new ones are too long. We'll get it taken care of. We're going to, like I said, box these back up, get them shipped out today, back to MOSER, and they'll get them fixed up. Hopefully as quick as possible, we'll get these back and be able to get this reinstalled and finally finish up the back rear braking system on here. In the meantime, we do still have stuff we can do on this project. Right here's our Yank torque converter. So we need to pull the transmission out and get this installed. It's a 3000 stall converter, which is going to help that Texas speed cam to perform at its best. So we'll go ahead and start on that a while. We'll get the trans, everything unhooked, get the trans pulled out, pull back, pull out, get the stock converter out of it, and get this Yank converter installed. And by the way, guys, it is nice to work with companies that will back up their product. I mean, whether this was just like I said, a tolerancing issue, or if the wrong dimensions were actually input into the system when these were being made, either way, they're going to take care of it. So it is nice to have a company that will stand behind their product and make it right when it counts. This is one of those instances where even though we spent all the time to measuring things and getting the right measurements to the company, we still have a incorrect part for whatever reason. So this is the kind of thing that people just don't see and don't realize when you're building a custom vehicle like this, that how much actually goes into making this stuff work. Again, this is a Grand National rear housing. We're doing a Willwood disc brake kit that's not really meant for this housing, making it work. So that's all good. But then we had to change the axles. So it's a snowball effect, and sometimes it just adds a lot more time to a project. And you know, it's stuck on the lift here for now. So we got the trans unhooked and on the jack. We'll go ahead and raise the truck up, and it should stay right there on the floor. And there we have it. Trans is out, of course. And just like that, we have our axles back, and they are good this time. As you can see, we have everything mocked up, a couple lug nuts on there to pull that tight in against, and we are evenly spaced here now. We're good to go with that. A big thanks to MOSER for making sure all that was right and taking care of all that. And while we were at it, we had them ship a rear cover here too. It's the one with the bolts. It's kind of a girdle. It helps put pressure on the caps. If we pick it up here, you'll see on the inside it just has these kind of jack bolts with little pads. That's a nice thick piece. It actually does have some weight to it. So we are gonna go ahead and put that on. We got our new gasket here to go with it too. Now this gasket does, when it comes, these little knockouts are not knocked out. Definitely take them out, because that's how it feeds the bearings back here and the axle tubes itself. So these little holes right here on either side is where that slot is in the cover. And if we look on the back side of the cover here, it's kind of got that V shape there. As the oil's churning in there, it comes up and settles in this groove, and then it feeds that channel. Like I said, it's what feeds these side bearings, but it also feeds your axle and your wheel bearing out at the end there too. So we'll get all this cleaned up, and we'll go ahead and get ready to install this cover. The first thing we're going to do is back these bolts out, just so they're not hitting. We're going to go way back, just so they're not hitting the caps when we bolt this cover on. So we should be good there. We're back way off. Once we get this on, MOSER does give you all the torque specs and procedure here. As you can see right there, torque the mounting bolts to 25 foot-pounds maximum for an 8/8, 10 bolt, or 12 bolt. We have a 10 bolt, so we're going to do 25 foot-pounds. And then the two low bolts get torqued down to 5 foot-pounds. And then the jam nuts get torqued to 10 foot-pounds. So once we get the cover all torqued on there at 25 foot-pounds, we'll tighten these up to 5 foot-pounds, and then that jam nut is 10 foot-pounds. They do, like I said, supply a new gasket here. There's the slot again I was talking to you about. We will put some RTV on there, just a light coat. You don't need a ton. Just on both sides of this, kind of keep the cover in, or the gasket in place, but also add a little bit of sealing. And there is, I don't know if it makes that much difference, but there is sealer for gear oil, which we do have right here. Gear oil, gasket maker, or sealer. Again, we do have a gasket, but we will put a light coat of this on there. Just helps it seal up that much better. And before you put the cover on, just do a quick once over. Make sure you put the cross pin bolt back in. All your parts are back in. Torque down the spec. All we did was change the axle, so we did have that pin out and the bolt. So all that's back together, torqued. We're good to go with that. That bolt I mentioned in the other build video, but it does get torqued down to 20. It's 20 to 25. We did 23 foot-pounds with Loctite on that. So let's go ahead and get that cover thrown up on there, and it'll be a big improvement. Again, a light coat's all you need, but as you can see, we have the cover on there. I started the bolt at the very bottom, the very top. Everything's lined up. We'll go ahead and get the rest of our bolts in and torque the perimeter bolts to 25 foot-pound and just kind of do a crisscross pattern. And again, after the perimeter bolts, we'll tighten these center bolts up, whatever you want to call them. They're kind of jack bolts to put pressure on the caps, support bolts. 5 foot-pounds, very, very light. You don't want to over torque these and warp your cap. And then we'll just cinch those locking nut down to 10 foot-pounds, and then we're done with this install. Make sure your fill plug or your drain plug is tight. We'll pull the fill plug out and we'll top this off with fluid. The only other thing you definitely want to make sure is this cover does add some bulk to it, so make sure in the suspension travel it's not going to hit anything. We're clear here. We do have to, I went ahead and torqued all the bolts down like I said, but we still have to actually shorten these lines up for the disc brake kit, and then we will reattach this to that top bolt. But there's no sense doing that now. Now we know we have everything torqued. We'll let that sealer set, and then once we get these lines shortened, we can remedy that. It's just removing that bolt and putting a longer bolt in to hold this brake line in place. But very nice piece from MOSER Engineering. Not that this truck needs that cover for any real purpose, but it looks good on there, and it kind of matches the rest of the theme on this truck. We did get our seals in the front and the tail shaft seal replaced. We did get the Yank torque converter installed. We did put fresh clean fluid in the torque converter before we installed it, so just make sure your converter is fully seated back into the transmission. There is a measurement you can go off of from the bell housing flange to the lug on the torque converter. Yank does give you measurements, so double check with your application. But we're ready to go back up into the C10 and get this transmission reinstalled at this point. Transmission's back up in there, lined up. We have the bell housing bolts in. Of course, the truck's back up on the lift. We have a pull jack to support the back. Next, we're going to tackle the torque converter bolts. Yank did supply new bolts here, and you're always, well, you first of all, you need to test and measure the engagement with the new torque converter, how far it pulls back out of the transmission to touch the flex plate, how much gap you have there, and adjust as needed with shims. We are good, so we're going to go ahead and put our bolts in. We have everything lined up. We'll start one by itself. I can get it lined up. You're going to want to get one started, rotate the motor around by the crank bolt, and line up the next one. Start them all by hand, finger tight first, and then turn them back around, pull them back one at a time, and put Loctite on them and torque them down. Don't torque any of them down until you got them all started. We've all been there. We all tried to cut that corner, and every time you have to come back and loosen them up to get them all started. So definitely just start them by hand, go around, take them back out, put Loctite, tighten them back up, make sure you get them all. Since we have the trans back up in the C10 here, we're going to take a small break because we did get a couple of things in, and let's check them out. Obviously you can see that one by the sticker on top is a Holley Terminator X Max. They ship out a Terminator X sticker, but it is a Max system. Let's pop the lid here. It's kind of all, if you've never seen one of these, they are a neat system. There is I think it's a 3.5 inch LCD display, of course directions, and all of the wiring we need for the install. We have some pretty exciting things coming up, at least for me, and I think you guys are probably gonna think they're pretty exciting too. We'll drop this back in here for now because we're not going to get into that right this second. We are, well, I'm not going to get into it too much, but we're going to be doing quite a bit with the Holley Terminator X and X Max systems. We got a couple installs coming, and I have something that's going to be actually a tool for the shop with a Holley Terminator X. We'll kind of leave it at that. But I'm very excited about this. I actually have, well, let's just look around the corner here real quick. We have a 6-liter here, 4L80 here. There's a 5.3, there's a 5.3, another 6-liter, 2 more 6-liters partially taken apart, another 5.3, another 6-liter, and that is actually an LY6, in addition to the 2 6-liters we have out that are still in the Escalades, the black one and the wrecked one. So we have a bunch of LS 24 tooth LS motors, 5.3s and 6-liters, and it's going to get interesting here real soon. This is actually a package I was extremely excited about. I still can't believe you can buy this that cheap. Let's just pop it open here. We got this through Amazon. It did come damaged, big giant hole, but fortunately it doesn't look like there was anything missing or any major damage. So these are actually stainless steel headers, LS swap headers. I think they're like 73 Chevelle up, Monte Carlo type, in my opinion, kind of the uglier body styles, but these headers are extremely cheap off Amazon. I think these shipped to the door were like under 90 bucks, which is absolutely crazy. But for what we're gonna do, I'm extremely excited. Hopefully these fit our mounts, and well, we'll definitely get into that in a upcoming video here real soon. I'm actually going to start on that project since we have most of our parts here. But anyway, yeah, these, if you're looking for like a cheap LS header for any kind of application that isn't like chassis specific, definitely check these out. I don't know how they can sell them that cheap, and they look pretty. I mean, I'm not going to say they're extremely nice, but I mean, I don't have an issue with them for what I'm using them for. They're going to be absolutely perfect. So we're going to go ahead and stop it here. We got to finish putting the rest of the trans stuff back together, but it's just pretty much the cross member wiring and hook this side exhaust back up, and then we'll move on. Now we have the rear brake install done, axles installed, trans is out, the stall converter's in, trans is back in. Now we need to go ahead and start on that Texas Speed cam install. Of course, we already did all the Speed Tech front suspension pieces. All that's totally done. The front Willwood brake install is done also, as you can see. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.